Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. We are dealing with a handful of technical issues, but we should be good. I'm going to fill some time, tell some jokes. No, I'm teasing. Tom will be here with us in a minute or two. But I do thank all of you who have tuned in. We had over 30 folks registered from across the state and in multiple states as well. And I see that there's a couple of repeat customers that have been part of our conversation with the colleges series. So thank you for your investment in time to connect with and hear from our senior administration here at the university. My name is Greg Fansler, and I serve as Executive Director of Engagement and Alumni Relations here at Missouri State in our Office of Advancement. It's a great day to be a Bear. I'm now in my 5th month of working here at Missouri State and living in Springfield, and it's been such a warm welcome from the community. Back to Conversations with the College. This is a series that we created to really give alumni the opportunity to connect with and hear from our deans and the Vice President of Student Affairs. Our deans and the Vice President of Student Affairs are just excited to share with you what is happening on campus today and to celebrate some of our recent achievements and to kind of paint the picture for what the future holds here for Missouri State. Through this conversation series, our senior administrators have illustrated the impact alumni and friends have had on their respective colleges or academic units as part of our Onward Upward campaign, which you'll hear a little bit more about. Now, this impact of the Onward Upward campaign has translated into new buildings and scholarships and professorships and much more. Thank you to all of you who have supported Missouri State through the campaign and for tuning in today to hear from Dean Tom Peters, who's the Dean of the Libraries. Tom, you're with us. This is terrific. Glad it worked out. I want to quickly thank Angie Rowe for yeoman's work, one, promoting this series, and also for getting you online here in the last few minutes. Everybody, this is Tom Peters. Tom is a graduate of Grinnell College. He received his Bachelor of Arts with honors in English and Philosophy in 1980 from Grinnell. He received his Master's in Library Information Science from the University of Iowa in 1987. He was Dean of Libraries at Western Illinois in the late 90s, and then became Assistant Dean for Strategic Tech Initiatives at the Milner Library at Illinois State University. He was serving in that role until 2012, and that's when Missouri State offered him the deanship, and he's been serving as dean for 9 years and 9 months here on the campus of Missouri State. Tom, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time and for being with us this afternoon. I'll continue to talk while you pull up your slideshow. We really appreciate everybody being here again, and Tom, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thanks much, Greg.
You're welcome.
Trying to get my slideshow up. I think it's there. Okay, hopefully people can still hear me. I apologize for the delay and the tech problems.
We hear you.
Okay, good. And I'll get back to, there's my initial slide. So what I'd like to speak with you all about just for a few minutes is briefly give you an update on what's happening in the MSU libraries today and looking into the future, and then how the current capital campaign has enabled us through your generosity to do things above and beyond what we normally would be able to do. So in terms of where we're at, it's a very interesting.
Tom, we haven't seen your slides yet, so you may need to share that.
Okay, sorry.
And for those of you here tuning in, when Tom's done with his slide presentation, you'll have an opportunity to ask him questions in the Q&A set, in the Q&A portion, or just the chat. So be thinking of questions you want to ask Dean Peters. Thank you.
So. Apologize, folks. Hold on just a second. Greg, now are you seeing the slides?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay.
Just need to make it a slideshow and we're good.
Yep. All right. So interesting time to be involved in academic libraries here and in other universities. We're both a physical library and a digital library. And one of the lessons coming out of this pandemic is that, and we sort of knew this already, is that really the future of use of information resources in higher education is really at the digital in the digital area, but we still do buy books, and we still do buy, and we have a lot of visitors to the Meyer Library, Dwayne G. Meyer Library. Pre-COVID, we were running about 875,000 visits per year. And COVID, of course, has changed our use of physical space significantly. But I'm happy to report that we're back to about 80% of where we were pre-COVID. So people still like coming to the library, but online is more easily accessible from anywhere, and that's one of the key lessons. Of course, we have a wonderful residential higher education experience here at MSU, but remote learning is also active both at MSU and beyond. So libraries have to, enable both on-campus use, in-building use, but also remote users hither and yon. Obviously, print and electronic are key parts of our what we offer in terms of information content, and really the electronic stuff. In most disciplines and most uses, the electronic stuff is what today's students, faculty, and staff prefer. Regardless of how we pursue it today and tomorrow and into the future, I would suggest that every library offers a combination of three basic elements: information content. We used to call those collections, but really it's a lot of digital content now. Information services, which are also available online and in person, and then spaces, which is actually one of the most interesting of these three basic building blocks of any academic library. The physical space. I remember 30 years ago that people were like, "Who's going to go to an academic library? Who's going to go to any library in the third decade of the 21st century? It'll all be online by then." Well, a lot of it's online, not all of it, but a lot of it is, but people are still coming into physical libraries in droves. And so that's been a real challenge for all libraries of all types. So we have an operating budget. We have an operating budget of about $6.6 million. Most of that goes for salaries and content. Those are the two major things that we use our operating budget for. And it's a good budget, but things like gifts of different types, which I want to focus on today, and also grants. In the grand scheme of things, last year our gifts total a little over $2 million. So that's substantial, and it really helps us to do more and do things better, faster than we've been able to do before. So in terms of gifts, how do gifts come to MSU libraries? Of course, monetary gifts are a major part of gift giving to the university libraries. But also we receive a lot of in-kind gifts, and I'll talk more about that. These are, might be a collection of books, it might be a collection of old photographs, a wide variety of types of in-kind gifts that we receive. I don't know, maybe Greg knows or somebody knows, but of all the colleges at the university, maybe the College of Ag and the libraries rely more on in-kind gifts than most of the other colleges. I don't know that for a fact, but we rely a lot on in-kind gifts as well. And then the third type, which I see as sort of a growth area for all types of libraries, is we'll identify some collection, let's say, and what we basically agree with the, I'll call them the donor, but they're not really going to give us that item. They're just going to loan it to us so that we can digitize it. And then we'll return the originals, whatever they might be, old letters or a Civil War diary or whatever. And all we ask is a non-exclusive right to do whatever we want to do with the digitized copy. And because we're a public university, that we want to make it available free online. And then we return the originals and we give the donor a copy of the digital copies as well. We're finding very good response to that for people. We may eventually get the physical items. In a perfect world, we'd like to have the physical items, but having a digitized version of whatever it is good. And so that's a third type of sort of gifts that come to the MSU libraries. So in terms of cash gifts, the Parents Phone campaign has been very successful for us. I often, about once a semester, I go over and talk to the students who actually make the phone calls to the parents, and the parents respond quite favorably to the library message. So that's been very good. Family foundations have been wonderful. I'll talk about that. Estate plans. There's a lot of ways that monetary gifts can be made to the university, and specifically to the university libraries. And that's just, again, allows us to do more things and faster and better than we would just using our operating budget. In terms of in-kind gifts, of course, we do get book collections of various sizes, and I'm working on some now as people, sometimes they're downsizing, sometimes someone has passed away. I put cookbooks in there because we recently received, within the past year, a major collection of cookbooks from the Noble family. And we're in the process of cataloging them and getting them ready for use. But we went from having really a so-so cookbook collection to probably pretty close to a world-class cookbook collection. So we're going to build on that and look for things in the culinary arts as they continue to be published. It's a whole field of publishing cookbooks and culinary arts and chef memoirs and things like that. So we still receive books. We get a lot of like author papers and manuscripts. I don't know if you know the author, regional author, John Mort. He recently gave his papers and manuscripts to the university libraries. And so that's another major area of in-kind gifts. We do receive quite a few photos and letters and things like those. And then the last thing there I want to mention, because we received from Sarah and Pete Morgan, who live out in the Phoenix area, truly a world-class collection of military patches and insignia. He's been a collector. They've been collectors all their lives, and they're now into their ninth decade of life on Earth. And so Pete's an alumnus of MSU, and we now have a really world-class collection of military patches and insignia. ROTC has historically been a very strong program at MSU, and so we're very pleased to receive these kind of collections, in-kind gifts, large and small. So in terms of loan to digitize, just to give you a few examples, up in Osceola, Missouri, yes, the same place that has the cheese factory, there's a wonderful thing called the Johnson Library and Museum. They have an excellent collection of Neoplatonic literature, and it goes across multiple generations. They collected in this area. We've helped them out by scanning their card catalog so that other scholars around the world can discover the amazing books that are up at the Johnson Library and Museum in Osceola, Missouri. So that's just one example of loan to digitize, where we return the card catalogs, but we digitize them and they make them more, put anything online, and it just makes it much more accessible to people worldwide. The Jubilee Backstage Collection. So that's where this image came from. And there's Porter Wagner on the right-hand side. And Wanda Jackson is the attractive young woman in this photograph. We learned about a collection of backstage photographs about the Ozark Jubilee. So this was when they were putting on the show. There were people that had access to the behind the scenes, and they would just took a lot of photographs of people that appeared on the show in these kind of, sort of casual poses. We received the right to digitize them, but then we return the originals again along with digital copies. And we have one thing we want to do is make it freely available online, which we've done. Same with the Brian T.E. Bisney Jubilee collection. So Brian Bisney was the producer of the Ozark Jubilee for its entire network run of almost 6 years. Every week they did a show, which just continues to amaze me. He was the producer, and he kept all kinds of things about the Jubilee, and his son allowed us to digitize them, make them freely available online. You're sensing a pattern here. And then we're returning the originals back to him down in Florida. So a lot of growth in this area in terms of scholarly resources for about the Ozarks and about all manner of things through this Loan to Digitize program that we've started. I would be remiss if we're talking about gifts to the university libraries without mentioning special collections and archives. It's kind of hard to maybe describe what's happening here, but this is a book where a 4-edge painting has been painted onto the block of text, but you actually have to kind of hold it in a certain way to reveal the image. If it were just a book on the shelf, like, you wouldn't see it, and you have to kind of sort of crimp the pages a little bit to see the resulting image. And so this is a part of publishing that is no longer practiced, but it's an interesting facet of the book culture. And we are actually acquiring, through generous support from various individuals, some of these wonderful book objects. Speaking of wonderful events, so Rare Wine, Rare Books, if you've ever been to one of these, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a totally unique event. The proceeds from the event benefit the Fraley Family Endowment, which goes back into special collections and archives. I think the invitations have gone out for this year's, it's Friday, July 22nd, 2022. If you have any interest, feel free to contact me and I can put you in touch with people that can tell you whether there are any slots available. It usually sells out. We try to keep it a certain size. It's usually 5 flights of wine with gourmet foods to go with those 5 flights. It's just a very entertaining evening. It's about the books. It's about good wine, good conversation. And it's, I don't know of anything else that I've ever attended that's like Rare Wine and Rare Books. It's truly a unique event. And we're happy. We've been hosting it now for upwards of 10 years. Okay, another thing that I want to briefly mention is that we are undertaking in the midst of a multi-year project to renovate public areas in Meyer Library. In part, we are relying on donor relations and generosity from donors to help with this renovation. My joke about library furniture is if you don't buy the absolute best, it's going to fall apart quickly. The absolute best is expensive. And then if you don't replace it, within 20, 25 years, then it's indestructible, more or less, but eventually you're going to have to replace it. So we're kind of at that stage. The building was added onto in early 2000. So we're now 21, 22 years since it was added onto, and the public spaces just needed a refresh. And so we've been working on that. Sometimes we use leftover money from our operating budget in the following years called carry forward funds to help fund this renovation, but donors have really stepped up to help us with this. So this image here is of what we affectionately, with students, faculty, and staff, refer to as the living room. You can see that it's very comfortable furniture, multi-use furniture, kind of hard to see in this photograph, but there's actually a faux fireplace back there against the wall. It's very homey. We've got these interesting lighting features. I call them the Sputniks. My point is that we would have renovated that space and we would have done a good job renovating that space. But because of the Don and Ruth Martin Family Foundation, they gave us a gift that allowed us to really do it upright. And it's now probably the most popular place in the library. Always a lot of people in there. And so that's where these kind of gifts can really help us to go from really good to great kind of things. So that's an ongoing project for us. We'll eventually get all of our spaces in Meyer Library renovated, and students love it. Most of our users are students striving to become educated adults, and they're coming through the door in droves. And when we renovate a space and open it up, we don't have to do a social media campaign. The word gets out and people just fill up the space almost immediately. Okay, another thing I just want to mention is how private funding and gifts have helped us. It was probably 8 years ago. I'm on my 10th year, nine years, 9 months, Greg. pretty close to being up to my 10th anniversary here at MSU. It was about 8 years ago that Wayne Glenn, the old record collector, set up a meeting with me. He came in and he said, I found a bunch of Ozark Jubilee programs. I knew enough about the Ozark Jubilee to sort of know what he was talking about, but I had a learning opportunity and I tried to get up to speed real quick. So back in the late 50s, when the Ozark Jubilee appeared, there was no videotape and everything was live, absolutely live, no 8-second delay. It was live television. Every week they did live television. But I think to satisfy the companies that ran commercials on these programs, they made what are called kinescopes. I'm not going to explain kinescopes to you, but they're basically films of television monitors. And so UCLA had some of these kinescopes, about 65 of these kinescopes that we wanted to digitize. So we worked with the UCLA Film and Television Archive, negotiated a price. They didn't want to sell them to us. But so again, we said, well, if you'll digitize them, we'll pay you for that process. And then we'll have the non-exclusive right to do whatever we want with them, which basically is we're going to make them available online. We are going to have a celebration. We finished this project, at least phase one. We've got 74 30-minute reels that are online, probably about 1/10 of all the programming that was aired through the Jubilee. We are going to have a celebration event on Thursday, April 17th from 4 to 6. So feel free to come on in to see an example of how giving from private individuals. We also got a pretty hefty grant from the Grammy Museum Foundation to help us to digitize, as Wayne Glenn said, the most important thing musically that's happened in the Ozarks to date. Okay, and then the last thing I think I'll leave you with, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and discussion. We are in the midst of a major effort with the Smithsonian Institution based in Washington, D.C. to plan and put on a 10-day program on the National Mall, summer of 2023, that focuses on the entire Ozarks region. And in working with the Smithsonian folks, they've always said, you know, Congress loves this event. They don't fully fund it. And so by MSU is the lead institution in the Ozarks working with the Smithsonian. We're working with other institutions around the 5-state region, but we're the lead. And one of our responsibilities is to raise money to basically bring a contingent of musicians, artisans, chefs, and others to this major event that will be held on the National Mall summer of 2023. So summer after this one. Sponsorships are available. My colleague and I have been going out and talking to Silver Dollar City and Bass Pro, and we were up at Hammond's Walnuts in Stockton last week. And so we're offering sponsorships to basically major corporations that have either home base or major interest in the Ozarks region. But private giving, we've already received some private gifts from individuals, and every gift helps to bring this contingent to DC in the summer of 2023. So it's going to be another, MSU and the Ozarks region on a major national stage. Of course, they're coming out of the pandemic like everybody else. They've had a couple of years where they really didn't do it on the National Mall. This summer will be kind of the restart for them. We'll be going just to observe what's happening and what works and what doesn't work. And then hopefully in 2023, we'll have general good health vis-a-vis viruses in our population, and we'll have an amazing event on the National Mall. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending today. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Greg, and he's going to set up some thoughts as we head into Q&A time.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate your time and for all the content you shared. Now, those of you out there, please feel free to type in your question. I see that we did have a comment here. The Jubilee celebration is Thursday, April 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. in the Ozarks room and in the library at 302. So
I must have had the date wrong. I apologize.
All good. All good. That's why we'll get this situated. Tom, tell me about folks that may have turned into, maybe these are folks that maybe worked for you and for the library services employees that that's a big constituency here at Missouri State. A lot of folks have come through and have been on payroll there and served the library. How do you keep in touch with those people or alumni in general who may be interested in hearing more from you and what may be happening in the library collection?
Good question. Once a year, we put out an annual report that we have a pretty extensive mailing list for that. It's also digital. There's the digital version online. So once a year, we kind of highlight, about 20 things that have happened in the previous year that we think are noteworthy. We always have a spotlight on a donor, a major donor. And so a lot of libraries do that. So we do that as well. Every week, I put out an e-newsletter called Library Notes. Anybody's welcome to sign up for it. We keep it to either 3 or 5. My colleague, Nathan Neuschwander, said it's got to be, something about odd numbers, 3 stories or 5 stories, no fewer, no more, not 4, 3 or 5. So I try to follow that. They're brief stories, just like updates of what's happening in the libraries. And so I recommend that people subscribe to the Library Notes e-newsletter. I and other my colleagues at the libraries are very involved in various initiatives around the region, and we often do a lot of talks. And so we're happy to come out and talk about particular aspects of the library or just what's happening in the library in general.
Okay, I see President Art Mallory is here with us, and he's reaching out to you. Art, you're welcome to type in something if you'd like, but I'll go with another question to you, Tom, and talk about the community. How does the Missouri State Library support community? Do you see a lot of people who aren't Missouri State faculty or students coming into the library doors? And what's that profile like? How are we a service to the region and beyond?
We do take service to the region very seriously, and most of, anybody's welcome to come in and use the physical library. If you find a print book of interest, you're welcome to use it. The one caveat is with electronic resources, we actually have agreements with the providers of the electronic resources. So it's a contractual obligation, and whatever the contract says in terms of, public, general public use, we have to abide by that. And it varies from contract to contract. So if you're ever trying to use an e-resource and it's like, oops, put in your Bear Pass number. And if you say, I don't have a Bear Pass number, that's because of the contract. We just have to, we try to negotiate for as broad access as possible, but contracts are contracts with these major information producers. Now, the stuff that we digitize, so like the Ozark Jubilee and all the backstage photos and all the things that we digitize, and I should have stated that we have our own in-house digitization lab. So they are working away every day on digitizing more things. That's all freely available to anybody. And based upon kind of, usage stats, we know that a lot of what we do is more broadly used than just by the university community. So our primary purpose is to support the university community, but a lot of what we do is available and of interest to the general public.
So I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I do believe every alum would have a Bear Pass.
I think so.
Provide that. We can provide that to them. So if people on this call don't have their Bear Pass or know it, we can by all means call the Alumni Association and we'll be able to provide that to you. And Tom, would that give them access to the resources?
I think for most of them it would. Sometimes we have to say, well, it has to come from an IP address that's on campus kind of deal.
Okay.
Or it has to be, even though it's a digital resource, it can only be used inside the physical library building. So we're in constant negotiation. We're always trying to get more access. And of course, the content providers are trying to limit access because they're trying to sell their content hither and yon.
Sure.
So, but we're in constant, so it really varies from, source to source. And we can tell you, but if you run into like one of those virtual brick walls, well, it's probably because of the contract.
Okay. Well, we'll look to make that a little more clearer, at least on our website. And Tom, if you don't mind, we'll work with you and determine how alumni could be able to use the library if they wanted to.
Yeah. So, and in our list of databases, we have sort of a coding scheme to sort of give you a sense of what's the access for that particular thing.
Sure. Talk about Tom, the current students and what do you see? Are they there at 10 o'clock at night? Or are they more morning people? Or are we making them waffles? And
Well, I think they're more, the joke is noon, we're now 12:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. In the minds of most college students, and I was that way too when I was in college, it's like 8 a.m. now, you're just kind of getting up and your day's starting, and then, midnight is like 6 p.m. for a lot of students. So we tend to see a lot of use between about 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So use of the building varies by day of the week and by time of day, but students who are predominant users of the building are they're amazing. Well, when I was a kid, if ever we had a group project, the only thing we did as a group was to determine who was the individual who's going to do the work, and the rest of it was just goof off. They actually do group work now in college and high school too, I assume. So that's a different generational shift. And they come in looking for spaces where they can do group work. And so we see a lot of small group work in the libraries. I jokingly say we could gut the entire building and put in nothing but small group rooms, and we still wouldn't have enough to satisfy a population of 23,000. So the demand for small group study rooms with whiteboards, and they use the whiteboards for legitimate academic use, and so a lot of what they can do online, but they still come physically to the library because I think it's conducive to what they're trying to do.
okay. Thanks, Tom. So we do have some questions from some audience members. And so I'm going to start with Barbara Masalio, who asks a couple questions. And do you mind saying what the subject of your talk at the luncheon for 50 years and more grads was during fall homecoming? So I assume that's the Golden Bears.
Yeah.
We're usually there, but due to COVID, they were not able to attend. Love your talks on most days.
Okay. The upcoming one, we haven't decided on a topic yet. I've been kind of doing, either like 5-year periods of life on campus or something like that. That seems to resonate the most with folks, especially tied around the incoming class, the ones that are now 50 years and they're now the first year is a Golden Bear. I would guess that's probably what we're going to do, but we haven't settled on
what was the one that you had last homecoming? Barbara
it was boy, somebody's putting me on the spot there. I think it was one of those ones, and it was about, I want to say maybe the early 60s on campus, but I don't remember exactly what the time frame was.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Lynn Klein owner.
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
Yeah. Tom, glad to see you from Lynn Klein owner. Like Caesar did with France, divided the library into 3 parts. The one I'm asking about is content. In a post-truth world, has your teaching of information literacy changed, amped up any in terms of the way or ways in which you go about developing critical thinkers amongst students?
Good question. Go ahead.
And then there'll be a second part, which I'll get to.
Oh, okay. Okay. Trust Lynn to give me a 2-part question, but thank you for withholding the second part. So very good question. And, information literacy is one of those literacies. And, I've been guilty of, somebody's spamming me or phishing or something, and I'm like, oh, there's something from so-and-so. I better click on that, and why are they asking me, how's it going in a way that I've never heard them express that before? What up? So just learning how to be wary of information, I think, is more vital today than it ever has been. And, the ability to sort of make a former president of any former president, living former president, appear to be saying something that looks like, well, there's the video right there, they said it, but they're using sophisticated software to overlay that message into some video clips, and it looks realistic. And so the ability to deceive the human mind has really ramped up in the digital era, I would say. And so information literacy is more important than ever. we have a great group of people that are working on information literacy here at the university. But we even just a few years ago, we started offering, I think the colloquial name for the course was fake news, how to spot it kind of thing. And we went out and worked with the public library and did sessions, and they were quite well attended. So it's an issue for all of us, not just for college students, and it's a lifelong issue. And so I really do think that information literacy and sort of, I don't know what to call it, vetting information, is this reliable information? Is there a sort of an inherent bias that's not being stated about whatever it is we're looking at or experiencing? It is really vital now. And we're trying, it's almost like an endless battle to help people to become more information literate, broadly defined.
Sure. Well, you kind of touched on this, but given the time horizon, second part of Lynn's question was, your curated and vetted commercial digital resources, how are they still being used, and are they still being used at the same rate today or as compared to 5 or 10 years ago? Are students being influenced by external factors seeking information?
Students and faculty and everybody goes, wherever they're going to go. We know we're not the only game in town, but by and large, our use of our digital content and our digital services is going up. And during COVID, a lot of that, especially the services, took a jump. So for example, we have a chat reference service. So you can ask a question on your smartphone and we'll get back to you with an answer or, more information. It took a jump during COVID, but the interesting thing is coming out of COVID, it's gone up again. So it's almost like people are like, oh, here's a service that's really useful, especially if we're all, sheltering at home. But now that we're kind of hopefully coming out of this thing, people are seeing the value of it. So I both on content and services, the digital content seems to be the real growth area for really all types of libraries.
Wonderful. All right, Tom, we'll take you off the hot seat for a quick second. I'm going to introduce Brent Dunn, our Vice President of Advancement. Brent, you with us?
Yes, I am. And so you've talked about the campaign, and it's the Onward Upward campaign, which actually are words from the fight song, the original fight song at Missouri State. I won't sing it, but it's basically saying we're going to take the university onward and upward. And that's the purpose of trying to raise $250 million for the entire university. So here's the date, though, that I want you to put on your calendar. October 29th of this year. And we're celebrating the campaign at a ending event that is open to the 60,000 donors that made the campaign possible, and to our students and our alumni. So it's a Saturday night, and that is homecoming week. So there's all kinds of things happening on campus. We're back to the original type of homecoming activities. COVID, we're putting that in the rearview mirror. So the parade's going to happen, football game, tailgate, everything it is happening. But that night at JQH Arena, we'll be doing a show and really showing sort of like before and after pictures of what the campus not only looks like, feels like, and how the campaign has changed the life of the entire campus. Again, it's those areas of faculty support, the areas of program support, student scholarships, and capital support. That covers all the entire campus. Our campaign chairman, as you know, is John Goodman, probably our most well-known alum around the world. And he will be with us in person, much like he did on October 26th of 2019, when we opened up with the show at Juanita K. Hammond's Hall for the Performing Arts. So the band, the entire grand chorus, some really pretty cool special guests that we'll be announcing later on in the summer will be joining us And so put that down on your calendar. We'd love to have you, and of course, homecoming week. So spend the whole week with us. So we're excited to complete the campaign and celebrate really not just the numbers of where we are, but celebrate the impact on our students and our faculty and staff and our community. And ultimately, those people change the world wherever they live. So hope to see you before then, but certainly on October 29th.
Thank you, Brent. And Tom, thanks for answering Barbara's question again. Really appreciate your time, Tom. And for those of you who joined us this afternoon, Tom, before I close, I will turn it to you to offer any parting thoughts of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience. And you're muted, sir.
Some things about the library do not change. So we are trying to provide, good information services, good spaces to members of the university community and beyond in a format that's usable to them at a timeliness. And that's not going to change. But, all of our information seeking and creating patterns are changing. When I was an undergraduate, the only thing we wrote were papers, and we did them on typewriters, and we did them with carbon papers, and we kept a copy in case the professor lost their copy. That's how, there was no video making, there was no tweets, So just the information creating and usage tools that are available today are just mind-boggling. And it's just happened in the last 25 or 30 years. And so the library, like a lot of people in the information organization, in the information industry, are adapting. And we're striving to just continue meet that fundamental mission. And it's just the way we do it is changing.
Terrific. Tom, the way you ended your talk about the Folklife Festival in DC, just for everybody out here, please do mark your calendars. If you have not been to DC during the 4th of July holiday, that's a 2-week span of the Folklife Festival that spans the 4th of July. It's an amazing place to visit. And we are going to be out there this summer on June 25th and June 26th. I'm going to be speaking at the Smithsonian, I think that day on Sunday, and we're going to have an event on the 25th, inviting alumni in the area, or if you are paying attention to our emails and you happen to be traveling to Washington, D.C., please consider joining us. Those details will be firmed up here very soon. Again, thank you to everybody who joined our conversation with the library today and Dean Peters. We have 5 more to go, including one this week on Thursday. Dean Meanart from the College of Business will be with us on Thursday at noon. I do want to end, unfortunately, we'll end on a sad note. We learned today that Dean Ron DeVecchio passed away, who's the Dean of the Dar Agriculture School, the College of Agriculture. And our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family as they deal with this. And so Ron will not be with us on April 19th, for those of you who may have wanted to hear from him. So deep thoughts and condolences out to the College of Agriculture family. And for those of you who are going to be with us on Thursday, looking forward to seeing you at noon. Dean Peters, thank you for your time, and thank you to everybody for tuning in. Go Bears.
Go Bears. Thanks.